Swedish officials once treated coffee cups like contraband. They taxed the drink, restricted it, and sometimes confiscated the pots and dishes used to serve it. Then, according to one of history's strangest medical stories, King Gustav III found two condemned twins and offered them a different sentence. One twin would drink 3 pots of coffee every day. The other would drink 3 pots of tea. Doctors would watch them for the rest of their lives. The king expected coffee to kill first. Instead, the experiment reportedly outlived the doctors, the king, and almost everyone's patience. But before we decide that coffee defeated a monarch, there is a problem. Sweden's coffee bans are well documented. The twin experiment is a famous account whose exact details are much harder to prove. And that gap between fact and legend is where this story becomes interesting. Coffee reached Sweden as an expensive foreign luxury. At first, it belonged mainly to wealthy households. Then more people wanted it. That worried the government for several reasons. Coffee had to be imported. Money was leaving the country to pay for it. Officials also complained about luxury, excess, and possible damage to health. In 1746, the state issued an edict against the misuse of coffee and tea. Heavy taxes followed. People who avoided the tax could face fines, and their cups and dishes could be confiscated. Then came outright prohibition. Coffee was banned in Sweden repeatedly between the 1750s and the early 1820s. But writing a ban was easier than making people obey it. Coffee moved into private rooms, small shops, and illegal markets. Police records from later bans show people selling it, storing it, and drinking it despite the law. The government had discovered an irritating truth. A habit does not disappear because a decree says it should. By the time Gustav III became king in 1771, coffee already carried decades of argument. Gustav was a theatrical ruler who liked authority, culture, and grand public gestures. He also believed coffee was dangerous. According to the famous story, he decided that warnings were not enough. He wanted proof. 2 identical twins had reportedly been condemned to death. The king commuted their sentences, but attached a condition. They would spend the rest of their lives inside an experiment. One man received coffee. The other received tea. Each was supposedly required to drink 3 pots every day, while 2 physicians recorded what happened. This was not a modern clinical trial. There was no large sample, no proper control group, and no sensible dose. It was 2 prisoners, 2 drinks, and a king waiting for the result he expected. At first, the experiment must have seemed simple. The men would drink. The doctors would observe. Coffee would expose itself as poison. Then time began ruining the plan. Days became years. The twins kept drinking. The expected collapse did not arrive. According to later versions of the story, the 2 supervising physicians died before either prisoner. Then Gustav himself was shot at a masked ball in 1792 and died from his wounds. The king, who wanted the experiment to deliver a warning, never saw its conclusion. The story becomes even more embarrassing for his theory. The tea-drinking twin reportedly died first, at the age of 83. The death date of the coffee drinker is usually left unknown. He simply disappears from the account after outliving the doctors, the king, and his brother. It is a perfect ending. Possibly too perfect. The coffee restrictions are supported by laws, economic records, and police cases. The twin story is different. It is repeated in medical histories and popular accounts, but historians have questioned whether the experiment happened exactly as described. We do not have the neat surviving file we would want: names, prison records, daily observations, and a final report signed by the doctors. So the honest version is this: Gustav's hostility to coffee was real. Sweden's attempts to suppress the drink were real. The lifelong contest between 3 pots of coffee and 3 pots of tea is a reported story, not a fully documented laboratory record. But even as a disputed account, it fits the conflict around it. The authorities wanted coffee to be unhealthy, wasteful, and unnecessary. Ordinary people kept treating it as useful, pleasurable, and worth the risk of punishment. During the prohibitions, coffee did not merely survive among the wealthy. It became part of work, trade, hospitality, and private social life. Poor women in Stockholm were among those caught selling and serving it during the bans. Some used illegal coffee retailing to support themselves. That made enforcement more complicated than officials expected. They were not fighting one importer or one fashionable court. They were fighting thousands of small decisions. A woman kept beans in her room. A customer paid for a cup. A family hid its coffee service. A seller found another route. The law could seize objects. It could not easily erase demand. Sweden banned coffee during 5 separate periods between 1756 and 1823. Each prohibition ended. Coffee remained. By the 19th century, the drink was spreading far beyond elite households and becoming part of ordinary Swedish life. The state's feared luxury gradually became a national routine. That is the real victory in this story. Coffee did not defeat Gustav in a dramatic courtroom. It survived because people kept choosing it when the government told them not to. The alleged twin experiment turns that larger failure into one unforgettable image. A king waits for coffee to kill a prisoner. The prisoner keeps drinking. The doctors die. The king dies. The tea drinker reportedly dies first, and the coffee is still there. Whether every part of that sequence happened exactly as later writers described, the outcome of Sweden's wider campaign is not in doubt. The restrictions failed to decide the future. Daily life did. Today, the idea of Swedish authorities confiscating coffee cups sounds absurd because coffee became more normal than the laws written against it. The king wanted evidence that the drink was dangerous. History delivered evidence that the ban was weaker than the habit. The law faded. The coffee stayed.